We're excited to announce the first ever, first of its kind higher education podcast conference, brought to you by Edu Alliance, the EdUp Experience, and Podium. This is happening Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus. This is an in-person event, one day only, the first of its kind. This is for people working in and around higher education who are interested in starting a podcast, who may have a podcast, want to learn more about podcasting. So if you want to be there, please go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn how you can get your early bird registration, see who the keynote will be, and how you can submit proposals to be a part of this amazing inaugural conference. So that, again, go to higheredpodcon.com to learn more.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the EdUp Experience. I'm your guest host today, Dr. Lori Shanderson, and I am filling in, of course, for the wonderful Elvin Fuentes and the wonderful Joe Sausalito, because they trust me enough to have me on their platform, sharing the wisdom and experience of our guests with you all, our listeners. So today we are honored to have a very special guest, Raquel Martinez. And Raquel serves as the principal of Sageview High in Pasco, Washington. And guess what? She recently made history as the first Latina president of the National Association of Secondary School Principals. Welcome, Raquel.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Lori, being on today's podcast.
Well, I am so happy to have you on. There's so much that we can learn from you today. But first, tell us about your journey to becoming principal of Sageview High and eventually the first Latina president of the National Association of Secondary Principals. Like, what were some of the pivotal moments, if you would?
Yeah, I will say that I would group them into a couple of just milestones. You know, as just growing up, my parents were migrant field workers, and they were also both pastors, and they really instilled just the service leadership mindset in myself and my brothers and sisters. And as I continue to go through school, with education being a priority, I had that in the back of my mind, like, I'm here to serve, I'm here to help and support wherever is needed. That's just who I am. That's engraved in what I do. And I went to school first to graduate, really, and then go to college. And from there, I was pre-med, and my little brother was having some difficulty in high school. And I remember having a lot of conversations with my mom about, you know, how do we help my brother succeed in high school? And so he was having a rough time. And so I switched my major into becoming a biology teacher. As a result, I said, you know what, I need to go into education. Like, I want to be able to impact others, you know, who are struggling just as my brother was. And so I did that, became a teacher, and here in Pasco, at Pasco High School. And I had other leaders really pour into my leadership and grow me and invest and give me opportunities to lead, and show me what that looked like. And started leading in our high school, and then went into administration was an assistant principal at Stevens Middle School. And then I was there for 3 years as an assistant, and then became the principal there. And so a total of in that building for 9 years. Wow. From there, was tapped again and said, hey, it's time. It's time for you to expand your wings and really plan out this new high school, Sageview High School, that's going to open in 2 years. And so we need you to lean in and to apply. And I did that because, again, others investing in my learning and my growth. And that's how I became the principal of our new high school that we're opening up this fall.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting.
It is. There's a lot to it, but it's an amazing opportunity to really set the groundwork for being innovative, breaking down just different walls and barriers to really, you know, provide an opportunity for our students that doesn't happen everywhere. And so we're really excited to start that from ground up. And then with the national organization, you know, it was tapped a few years ago by our executive director and in our state with AWSP. And he said, hey, we need representation at the national level from Washington State. And it's time. Like, you need to lean into that. And I was like, no, Like, that is not my jam. I am not gonna
Right.
do that. Someone else does that. And finally I said yes after several conversations, was on the board, and then was tapped again by colleagues at the national level to really put my name forward as a applicant for the board president. And here I am today. So it took a lot of people to get me to where I am right now.
I love that because, I mean, this is the moving the needle forward, so to speak. I love how you were supported in this endeavor. I love in your career endeavor. I love that there were individuals that saw something in you and said, we need her in this role. We need her and her story and her challenges and everything to be in this role, because they felt like the impact and the import of your experience was going to lend itself to wonderful things for those that you're in front of in terms of your administrative career. And so I would consider you a trailblazer, sorry, in educational leadership. And that often comes, though, with significant challenges. So I'm curious to know about those challenges you faced and how you addressed them. And then maybe you could tell us about some achievements you're most proud of.
Yeah, I would say some challenges is, I really struggled, as I was talking before about, like, no, that's not my thing. Like, that's someone else's thing. It's really overcoming this imposter syndrome of, it's someone else. It's someone else. And I can depend on someone else as opposed to I can help lead the way. So that was a big challenge, is understanding that I do have something to bring to the table, and overcoming this imposter syndrome is why am I here? And then also understanding that I recognize that I am a leader of color, a woman of color, at the secondary level, which is rare at the high school level, and that was uncomfortable. That was a challenge for me. Like
What's
putting,
it?
just like being, the first Latina, like that's
Mhm.
normally not something you broadcast out and that you're proud of. It's, just being real humble, like, as it was part of my upbringing. And so leaning into that myself was a challenge for me to really, like, it's okay. You are who you are. Like, look at you. You are a Latina. Like, that is who you are.
And I see it as you're there and you should be there.
Yeah.
And there are many students that go through the educational
Yes.
system that need to see you there.
Yes.
And the fact that you're the first in many instances, to me, yeah. I mean, I'm glad you're there, but I'd like to think that you had a Raquel Martinez. You know what I mean? And to think that you didn't. So
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. And now being in this role, I would say it has really afforded a lot of opportunities of professional learning and really inspiring others and seeing, like, whoa, this people look for inspiration, and they look for people that look like them also
absolutely.
to connect with. And so it's a greater purpose, and understanding what it comes with. And so that's what has, probably to your second point on what are some greatest things that I'm most proud of or achieving in this role, is number one, being able to embrace the fact that others look for that inspiration, and it has been an inspiration to others. And then and for our students as well. Like, I remember talking to my students, as when I was formerly a middle school principal, and when it was announced, they're like, what?
Yeah.
I could do that too. What's happening? Oh my gosh. And that's bucket filling,
Yeah.
and then again, just the professional learning that I get to learn and collaborate with others across the nation on best practices. It's building that network. And that's something that we're trying to do at the national level with NASSP, is how do we build these shared experiences with other principals and getting everybody connected, because we are the experts in our field. No
Yes.
one should be coming in and being like, oh yeah, this is how you run a school. Well, why don't you just ask the principal and they'll show you how it's run.
Absolutely. And I think your lived experience, it lends itself to additional information that could better prepare principals, because they have students that are like you are a student, and
Yeah.
you have intimate knowledge about who you are and the students that are like you, who they are. And I think that's very important. And to that end, Can you discuss any innovative programs or initiatives that you implemented, maybe at Sageview, that you think would serve as a model for other schools?
Oh, 100%. You know, the biggest things that when you're starting a new school, and I understand that not everyone gets an opportunity to start a new school, but we did some of these items in my building, my former building as well. And I see my colleagues who are also trying to do this in a current high school, is really thinking differently about the career pathways we're setting for our students, our high school students. Right now, in a lot of situations, it's kind of like, oh, well, I feel like coming in this career, or I'm going to take these classes because my friends are taking this. And it's very choppy and open as opposed to focused and providing those experiences for each grade level. So that's probably one of the biggest takeaways is really streamlining and identifying structures in place. So I could say with confidence that your ninth grade student experienced these in ninth grade, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. These are the certifications, dual credit options that they are now graduating with, and at least can say either, no, I don't want to go into that career field, or yeah, I do want to explore that.
Very important.
So it's that focused pathway courses that we're doing, and not just sit and get. It's also for our teachers. So like recently, I took my staff on like this teacher externship. I'm going to take all of you. One of our signature programs is agriculture science and natural resources, let's say. I'm going to take you and I'm going to go take you to the Department of Ag, and you're going to go and learn about all of these different components with ag, the chemistry behind it, the forensics pieces behind it, the killer bees and tracking and why they were a huge issue in Washington State, all of these things in agribusiness. So as a teacher, as a principal, I'm going to invest in my teachers to go experience this. So then you can come back and speak to our kids about it and plan around it. So oftentimes we ask our teachers to talk about these career pathways, but they haven't experienced it themselves. And so they can experience it and then put that into practice for our students.
I love that. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because if they don't have that exposure, then how can they share that, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So as the first Latina president of the National Association of Secondary School Principals, can you tell us how you approach issues of diversity and inclusion within the school system? Like what strategies have you found that have proven to be the most useful? And this is considering the great discussion we are having now about a topic that we kind of can't avoid.
Higher Ed PodCon is coming. Go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn more.
Yeah. Yeah, when I approach this topic, it's really about with the lens of all kids. We are about all kids, irregardless of the background that you're bringing to the table. We're about educating all of our students. And so the way we go about that is making sure that all of our students are given the opportunity, not only the opportunity and access, but as well as the experiences that every kid should be experiencing, whether it's with career pathways or whether it's creating this culture of belonging, with fostering that positive school culture, putting things in place to unite our students. We're huge with NASSP on student voice. And how often do we leverage what our kids are saying and meeting with them, creating our councils within our school? They're the ones who will impact the culture in the building. Like kids are very social, right? We're all social people. So if we can get our kids around elevating their voice and actually doing what they're asking us to do, that will create momentum among the student population where everyone belongs. And so student voice is a big piece. We have our National Student Council. We have National Honor Society. We have a number of opportunities for our kids to get involved in at the national level. But then within our own buildings as building principals, really making sure that we put those avenues in place to listen to our kids.
Raquel, early you started off telling us that you were going to pursue a different trajectory for your career. Yes. And then you shifted in order to support your family, your little brother, and to help your mom navigate the educational scene for him. But can you tell us how your cultural background influenced your leadership style and philosophy? particularly in shaping the future of leadership in education?
Yeah, I'll tell you, like culturally, we're taught to, to be grateful. We're taught to be humble, and we're taught to be a hard worker. That you are going to have to work hard to get things done, and um, part of it, and then obviously to serve others. Growing up, being also working in the fields alongside my parents, it sucked. Like, have you ever worked in like the onions? Man, you're out there, or a nursery. Oh my gosh, my back and my knees would kill me,
Wow.
And however, going through that experience really taught me that resilience and what I didn't want to do growing up. I was not, and my parents did not want that for us growing up. And so carrying that with me, and understanding that if my brother wasn't going to graduate, I didn't want him to go down that path. And so switching my careers, really understanding that, hey, I can help influence other students who might be struggling at the secondary level based off of my own beliefs and my own experiences. That's what I wanted to do.
What advice then would you give to aspiring educators, like who want to pursue leadership roles, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds?
Uh, that's a great question. Um,
Because they're
there's
those
a
students
lot.
looking at
I
you
mean,
and they're saying, I
yeah,
want to be like you. Like, what would
yes.
you tell them? What would you say? This is what you need to put in your toolkit. This is how you need to maybe navigate your educational career. What would you say?
I would say my first advice would be, um, and this is easier to say this than actually living it, because I know I struggled with it, is recognize that you are who you are, culturally speaking, like who you are. You are who you are. Don't try to hide who you are. Like, si hablas español, if you speak Spanish, it's
See?
it's great. You have two languages. That's awesome. That's an advantage. Embrace that. So you are who you are would be the my first thing, and embracing that. And then secondly, surround yourself with a network of others who are going to be your allies, or who are going to champion you, and really invest in your leadership. It's a lonely position to
Yeah.
be, the only leader of color in certain situations. As building principals, sometimes you are the only one,
Mhm.
and it can be lonely. But if you have a strong core group of other individuals, what in whatever situation, that'll help uplift you, and encourage you, that is key. I wasn't This is an example. Like, when I was in fifth grade, my one of my teachers couldn't pronounce my name, Raquel, and so they changed my name to Rachel, and I carried that name all the way through, even today. Like, my voicemail says Rachel, my mom calls me Rachel, everyone calls me Rachel,
Wow.
except for the workplace, it's Raquel, it's Raquel. And I didn't feel comfortable with changing my name back from Rachel to Raquel until I was much older, because
Wow.
it was very much like, no, you don't say it in Spanish, you don't put that.
Interesting.
And so I say that because I wouldn't have been able to move past that unless I had others around me to be able to say, no, your name is Raquel. Your name is
Right.
Raquel. Like, that is who you are. Um, so that would be my advice. Surround yourself with people who are going to help champion you.
And that is so important because how can you grow if you don't even have your own personal identity? When I meet people and they have a difficult name to pronounce for me, difficult for me, and I say,
Yes.
oh, just call me. And I'm like, no, I want to learn
Yeah.
how to say your name. I don't want to call you Joe if your name is, that's one little small
Yes.
part of your name. I want to learn how to say your name
Yeah.
to give deference and respect to you and who you are. I don't want to change you. You are who you are based on the name that you were given, I
Yeah.
believe. And I
Yes.
think that's a significant part of your identity.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've met a lot of people who've had to change their names and just call me this. Why?
Right.
Hmm.
Well, Raquel, tell us, what kind of trends do you think are coming down the line for secondary education in the United States? I mean, there's been a lot that we've had to consume in a short time period in the last few months, but as you prepare for the future, what are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about funding public education. That's the biggest thing I'm thinking about right now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking that, um, although big shifts is what we see ahead, ultimately the funding needs to get to our kids and all kids. So whether that's funding our Title I or IDEA for students with learning disabilities, or funding professional development for teachers and for administrators, I'm thinking of all of our kids, all of our public education students, and that money continue to be there for our students. That's like right here in my face right now.
Yeah.
Um, as a common factor. So whether things shift, with the Department of Ed or whatever it might be, the funding still needs to be consistent and getting to our students. So when we say all, that's what I mean is all of our students in public education.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of our students is important. Not some of our students, not these students, not other students, because we learn from each other. My earlier years, I went to a school that was very diverse, but it was mostly Yugoslavian, believe it or not, when I was in elementary school. And I look back to my upbringing in New York City and the different cultures and ethnicities of people that I was around that I feel was exciting to me. And I think it made me appreciate, not be fearful of, but appreciate the differences and learning about different foods and music and cultures. It was such an enriching experience. And I think that all children should have exposure in that way. It only enriches them to know more about the world and the different people that make up the world. Well,
Yep.
we are nearing the end of our discussion, but I cannot let you go without asking you this last question. As president of the NASSP, tell us what your vision is with regards to key initiatives or changes that you're hoping to implement during your tenure.
I would say the big things that we talk about with our organization is elevating principals' voices, and empowering our principals to understand that they're not, like the foot soldiers. They're actually generals of their own schools and of a community. And so we ask principals, to lean into their advocacy, into sharing their stories. Many times, and I'm guilty of this, principals get stuck in their whirlwind of just their building as
Right.
opposed to seeing the bigger picture because of, the experiences that they need to be afforded. So um, that would be the biggest thing is making sure our principals' voices are elevated. At advocacy, we just finished advocacy last week. We had over 400 principals go to Capitol Hill and really
Right.
advocate for funding in public education and what that looked like. And so that's our biggest thing right now is advocacy.
I love that. That's a great point to end on, is to not be myopically focused on one school or your school, but right now to lean on one another, right? To see the bigger picture, as you said, and to
Mhm.
advocate for those things that you need to better educate your students. Thank you so much, Rachel Martinez, for being here with us today on the EdUp Experience. We truly appreciate your taking the time to talk to us about your role and everything that you're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lori. I appreciate the opportunity to share my experience, and hopefully it'll be a positive influence to anyone um, looking into that.
Well, I know it will. And thank you to all of our listeners who have come back for another episode of the EdUp Experience. If you want to find a podcast about higher education, and we're talking about any different area of higher education, you should go to where you find your podcast and type in the EdUp Experience. And you're going to be really happy with what you find, including a podcast hosted by yours truly called Accreditation Insights, where we talk about anything and everything related to accreditation. But it doesn't end there. You You can find a podcast related to higher ed on any topic as a part of the EdUp Experience Network. So thank you again for joining us today, all of you wonderful listeners, and we're looking forward to having you back again on our network.
Higher Ed PodCon is coming. Go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn more.